The Green Bay Packers finished the 2022 season with an 8-9 record and missed the playoffs for the first time in the Matt LaFleur era. Prior to 2022, they won 13 games in each of the previous 3 seasons, but failed to get to the Super Bowl in all 3 years. And in the 2022 offseason, they traded star receiver Davante Adams to the Raiders, and there were a lot of questions for the Packers in the post-Davante era. Who would step up? Where would the production come from? And even for as good as Aaron Rodgers is, surely his production would drop in 2022 without one of the best receivers in all of football, as going from Davante to a receiving core of Allen Lazard, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs would lead to a decline from any quarterback, not just Aaron Rodgers. And there was a decline, as the Packers ranked in the middle of the pack in a lot of categories last year, as they finished 17th in passing yards as a team, 18th in passing attempts, and 17th in total yards. And as we know, this offseason Aaron Rodgers was traded to the Jets in a blockbuster deal, which brings 2020 first-round pick Jordan Love to the starting lineup, and the question is, how will Jordan do this year? I'd be lying if I said I think he's going to set the league on fire and destroy every team in their path, but I don't think the Packers are as screwed as some people seem to believe. And in today's video, we're going to break down the 2023 Packers season. Now let's begin. And we are starting today's video by discussing what the Packers are going to try and accomplish this year, at least from a coaching perspective, and how they plan to win games in 2023. The big thing to remember here is where Matt LaFleur comes from in terms of the coaching tree, and he is from the Sean McVay coaching tree, and to go even further back, the Shanahan coaching tree. And what this means is the Packers are going to run a lot of outside zone and do everything they can to make Jordan Love's life easier in 2023. And we even saw this in 2022 as they ranked 12th in yards per carry, and despite finishing 16th in rushing carries as a team, what they finished first in last year is something they will 100% try and do again this year, and that's time of possession per offensive drive. They averaged a little over 3 minutes per drive, and what LaFleur wanted to accomplish in 2022, even despite having a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, is to run the football and to generally keep games low scoring. And what the Packers thought a lot of the time was, hey, if we keep it close to the fourth quarter by chewing the clock and keeping the opposing defense on the field, when the time comes, we'll give the football to Aaron Rodgers with the game on the line and essentially let him cook. And I don't think it should be a coincidence the Packers scored 370 points and allowed 371 points in 2022. And that's going to be similar to the game plan this year heading in, and what they also plan to do is to call shorter passing plays and to make Jordan Love's life as easy as they possibly can. And having said this, there's a reason the Packers spent not one, but 2 top 100 picks on tight ends in second rounder Luke Musgrave from Oregon State and Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State. Good tight ends are a quarterback's best friend because they have a bigger catch radius, and if a team is running a stick concept, for example, or any play where it's a turnaround route, there's virtually no way for a defensive back to jump over the top of them and make a play on the ball, meaning all the quarterback has to do is plant his feet and throw directly at a 6'5", 250-pound target. And I would be surprised if the Packers finish top 10 in any passing category this year, because they're not going to ask Jordan Love to throw the ball 600 times this year and to ask him to put the team on his back, at least not regularly. Hell, they didn't do that with Aaron last year, and this shouldn't be a hot take, but I do think Aaron Rodgers in 2022 was a better quarterback than what Jordan Love will be in 2023, at least from a talent perspective, as it wouldn't be entirely unrealistic for Jordan to put up similar numbers as Aaron did from 1 year ago. But if you're thinking the Packers offense will be a lot of deep shots to Christian Watson and think that he'll explode in his second year, while I don't think that's out of the question as he had a strong second half in 2022, that's not going to be the bread and butter of this offense. And Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon's carries were pretty close last year, as Aaron had 213 to A.J.'s 186, and I would expect a lot more of that this year too. The Packers' offensive line is of course led by veteran left tackle David Bakhtiari, but they should be a very good unit this year, assuming they stay healthy of course. Offensive lineman Zach Tom played all over the line last year and is slated to start at right tackle heading into the year, and the Packers' tackles with David and Zach Tom are a very good duo, and for reference, Tom allowed a single sack on 296 pass blocking snaps last year, despite playing 4 different positions across the offensive line, which for any player is tremendous, let alone a 4th-round rookie from Wake Forest. And I would like to go back to something I said earlier about the Packers' offense this year and the strategy they will try to implement. The number one priority will be to establish the run and to get the ground game going, as in a lot of ways, Jordan Love will be a rookie quarterback out there. Yes, he has 3 years in the quarterback room with Aaron Rodgers, and yes, he has been soaking it in for the past 3 years, but he only has 83 career passing attempts. They will get their downfield shots a few times a game with Christian Watson, who is a 6'4" receiver who can run a sub 4.4 40, but it's not going to be an every single drive thing. And I did like the selection of 2nd-round receiver Jayden Reed from Michigan State. Jayden is a good route runner and a good separator, and this will certainly help out a young quarterback like Jordan Love and will make his life easier. And despite playing teams like the Chiefs and Chargers and even going to a tough place to win in Pittsburgh, they don't play them early on, and the transition for Jordan Love as the starting quarterback, I don't want to say will be easy because not every quarterback can back up for a year and throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, but starting out against the Bears and Falcons, 2 non-playoff teams from a year ago, is a lot easier than somebody like CJ Stroud, who is playing the Baltimore Ravens on the road in his NFL debut. Granted, the Bears made a lot of improvements from last year to this year, but the Packers swept them in 2022, and in those 2 games, combined for 378 yards rushing as a team, which equates to 189 yards per game. I wouldn't expect that against this Bears team this year, but that will generally be the goal of every game. And in those 2 games, Aaron Rodgers only threw the ball 56 total times, and the Packers had a +3 turnover margin against Chicago last year alone. But these first 2 games are, in a lot of ways, going to set the tone for the Packers season. If they start out 0-2, which can happen against the Bears and Falcons, it's not impossible to come back from, but it's definitely a hole you do not want to be in with a first-year starting quarterback. And Jordan Love's first-year starting quarterback means it's his first year starting, not that he's actually in his first year. And if they can start out 2-0, then they come back home to Lambeau in Week 3 against the Saints, with the whole fan base and ownership group buzzing off the first 2 wins, and they would certainly think they have a 3rd straight great quarterback, assuming Jordan Love would have a big role in each of the first 2 wins. Every game in the NFL is extremely hard to win, and that cannot be emphasized enough. But truly, is the Packers starting out 5-0 a completely unreasonable take? I don't think they will personally, as I would be pretty surprised if they do not drop one of the Bears, Falcons, or Lions games, but I wouldn't be too critical of someone who thought they could start 5-0. And even the back half of their schedule isn't too bad, as their final 4 games are home against Tampa, who could be completely out of contention by then, at Carolina, at Minnesota, and home against the Bears. In terms of final games before the playoffs start, there's a lot worse schedules than the Packers have, and that the ones they could have right before the tournament. And their offensive strategy will translate when the cold weather inevitably comes to Wisconsin late in the season. And with the Packers' 2023 schedule, yes, the 5-game stretch of at Pittsburgh, home against the Chargers, at Detroit on Thanksgiving, home against the Chiefs, and at the Giants is going to be tough. But that is without a doubt the toughest 5-game stretch in their season, and out of those, are they completely out of any of these games? Is there any game where they just simply can't win because they are that outclassed? I don't think so, and granted, if Jordan Love plays awful and plays like a bottom 3 or 4 quarterback, then yes, that changes a lot of things with the Packers season outlook, but if he's even average this year, which I believe he can be, then they're going to at minimum compete with everybody, because this roster is pretty talented outside of the quarterback position, and for all we know, Jordan could be a good player. He's just going to have to prove it this year. The big thing with the Packers defense this year is being able to stay healthy, and losing a guy as key as Rashan Gary is to this defense is going to naturally limit what you can do defensively. And if Gary stays healthy this year, along with Preston Smith and Kenny Clark, that's going to make guys like Jaire Alexander's job and Russell Douglas's job a lot easier in the secondary. The Packers should also see more production out of second-year defensive lineman Devonte Wyatt, who they spent a first-round pick on in 2022 from the University of Georgia. And one thing to note here, and I'm only noting this because it happened twice, but Quay Walker has the potential to be a very good player in this league for a long time, as he had over 120 tackles in his rookie season alone. But he cannot be thrown out of multiple games this year, and expect the Packers to not only put up with it, but to keep winning and keep morale high in the locker room. And he was thrown out of 2 losses in his rookie season, which was against the Bills and against the Lions in Week 18. But that aside, I really like the Packers' defensive outlook in 2023, and the reason we bring up the Rashan Gary part specifically is a lot of people don't know this, but he had 81 pressures in 2021, which ranked 3rd in the NFL that year behind Max Crosby and Aaron Donald, meaning he had more pressures than Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, and even TJ Watt, who led the league in sacks that year and would go on to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. And by having a guy like this in Gary, it makes everyone's job on the defensive line easier, and in 2021, the Packers had 3 players have 60 or more pressures, which is absurd. And for reference, the Eagles, who had 70 sacks last year as a team, did not have that many guys have 60 plus pressures. Granted, the game flow with Rodgers in the middle of an MVP season would call for more teams to throw the football against the Packers, but it's not a coincidence the Packers' leader in pressures in 2022 was Kenny Clark with 45, despite having 64 pressures the year before. And this is just one example of how a pass rusher like Gary can have a significant impact on the entire defense just by being out there. And it would lead to a lot more one-on-ones for his teammates, like the aforementioned Preston Smith and Kenny Clark, but you know who else it would leave one-on-ones for? The 13th overall pick from this year's draft, Lucas Van Ness. This isn't just a Van Ness thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers' 2023 draft class doesn't have a lot of production in year 1 on the stat sheet, just because there are a lot of good players on this team, and for both tight ends, it generally takes a few years for the position to really get going. And to back this up, the leading rookie tight end in receiving yards last year was Greg Dulcich, who had 411 yards. The Packers are a strong team up front, and as long as they don't lose turnover battles in game like they did in Detroit last year, for example, when Aiden Hutchinson intercepted a ball in the red zone and Kirby Joseph intercepted a ball that was batted way up in the air, again in the red zone, Green Bay can win a lot of games simply by not turning the ball over and running the ball the way we know they can. They had 2 750-plus yard rushers last year and allowed more than 30 points just once in all of 2022, which was to the NFC champion Eagles. And if they can cut the turnovers down from 22 to the 17 or 18 area and limit the fumbles lost, as they lost 10 last year, this team can go a long way. A.J. Dillon is in a contract year, and I gotta be honest, guys, with how much I think they're going to run the football this year, 2 1,000-yard rushers isn't entirely out of the equation. The Super Bowl is a little far-fetched, but if they can get leads early and set up their pass rush the way they intend to in every game and get Rashan Gary going the way they did in 2021, along with everyone else on the defensive line, they are going to be a pain in the rear end for everyone to play. The team MVP, breakout player, ceiling, and floor are on the screen, and I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as only about 24% of people watching are subscribed, and it makes a tremendous difference. Definitely check out Underdog Fantasy, the link is in the description, and maybe place a future on a guy like Aaron Rodgers, whose passing touchdown line is at 28.5 for the season. Hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, please be safe, and have a great day. Love you guys.